Hello everyone, I'm Women International Master Knarik, and to record this video I'm using the chesswithknarik.com website. I recommend that everyone tries this website because here we have different group classes and we have private lessons all for free. Also, you can practice puzzles and lessons and different practice exercises on this website, or play against the computer or other opponents here, all for free. And here in today's position, we analyze a second position where we are using the concept of zugzwang in order for us to win an endgame. Now let's see how. If we look at this position, what is there to see? First, we have almost symmetric positions on the king side and queen side. We have two pawns on the queen side with white. Black has two pawns there on the king side, and one pawn on the queen side for each for black and white. And let's see, how about if we look in the center of the chessboard? Now, if we look at only the center of the chessboard and we ignore the king side and queen side, we can say that here, if it is white's turn, if we're only looking in the center, if it's white's turn, white will have to move away the king, black's gonna win. And if we go back, if it is black's turn, black will have to move away and white is going to win. So what does this mean? Going back to the original position, it's white's turn. We can understand that we need to try to finish the pawn moves in this position on the king side and the pawn moves on the queen side as well, but in such a way that it will always be black's turn when the pawn moves finish, so that black has to move away from their pawn and we'll be able to capture their pawn and win the game. Now, but how to do that? Just like we mentioned in our first video, it's very important that we try to keep the pawns that haven't moved yet to the end. So this means that by default, by not calculating much, I know that I need to move the pawn that's on h3 to h4. Now, let's see what are different options that black has. Now, if black moves the a pawn once, okay, we can now try to move again a pawn that has already moved. I'm moving the pawn that's on h4. I moved it one more time. Now let's see, what should black play? If black pushes the pawn again on the a file, we can finish the pawns on the king side. We can finish the pawn moves on the queen side. And on the king side, black is going to, let's say, if black pushes the pawn, okay, we can now just finish the pawn moves just by pushing our pawn once and or twice, it won't matter. And going back, what if black pushes this pawn here? We can again decide either to capture this pawn or just push. It won't matter because this is what having the pawn on g2 is why having the pawn on g2 is good for us, because we will always have the option to choose which one's best. And here we can just push our pawn. If black pushes, I can push the g pawn twice in this case, because then it will be black's turn and pawn moves are over. Black will have to move away the king. But going back, even capture was going to be fine, because if we capture and black's capturing back, all we need to do is play symmetrically, push once our pawn, because we want when black pushes their pawn, we push one more time, and again that will end the pawn moves on both sides of the chessboard with black's turn. Black will have to leave their pawn, white is going to win it and win the game, of course. Now going back to the original position, what else can we check? What else can black try to play? Let's say we played pawn to h4 and black played another move, not with the a pawn, but with one of the other pawns. Now let's say the h pawn is not going to be so good, because if it moved once, it's not going to be so good because we can just stop the pawn moves on the king side here, and that's going to give us a plenty of time. Even when the pawn moves are over, we still have two moves to do with our pawn, which is okay, very convenient for white. White is winning. And if the black pawn moves twice, what we can do is this. Now what to do here? I will have to move one of the pawns that have moved already. But what I can do is, again, just by default, if I don't want to calculate much, okay, if I want to make sure that the pawn moves are going to end with my opponent's turn, I can just play symmetric. Now it means that I can just push my pawn on the a file once. That makes all the pawns symmetric on the king side and queen side. And again, let's see, because if black pushes on the queen side, we can push there. Pawn moves finish on the queen side. Black will have one move, we will do one move, and it won't matter which one goes first. Even if black's moving on the king side first, we play symmetric, and again on the queen side we play symmetric. Pawn moves finish with black's turn. Going back, what else to try for black? Let's say we pushed our pawn. We tried if black's pushing their a pawn, if black's pushing their h pawn. How about if black pushing the g pawn? Now let's see. Here again, we need to think which pawn to push. We can try to make the position again on the queen side symmetric. Let's push the pawn on the a file once. Now let's see what's going to happen. If black is going to push the pawn on that side, sooner or later they will. Okay, we can just finish the pawn moves on the queen side. And now on the king side, what will black play? If black pushes the pawn twice, how can we finish the pawn moves with black's turn? Of course, there we go. Again, we moved symmetrically. Now, what if black pushes the pawn once? Now here, it's important to decide what to do with our pawn, which is where our advantage is. We can decide to move it once or twice. We can see very clearly that if we push the pawn once, what will happen is that black is going to push the pawn on the h file, and the pawn moves just finish with white's turn, and white's gonna lose this game. So we push our pawn twice. Anyways, that's something else that we need to keep in mind. In this position, where black will have to push one of their pawns, is going to be very good for white, because regardless of what pawn black pushes, it won't matter, because again, such a move gives white a choice, gives white the choice of either just pushing the pawn or capturing. And it's good to be the side that has the options, because you're the one who decides. If you want the pawn moves to finish with your turn, you can just capture. Black is going to capture back, it's going to be your turn. If you want the pawn moves to finish with your opponent's turn, you can just decide to push the pawn. And that's what we can do. We should do here. We can just push our pawn, and here it's going to be black's turn. As we said, when the pawn moves finish on king side and queen side, black will be in a zugzwang, and the black will have to move away from their pawn that's on e4. We're going to capture it. And now winning this endgame is going to be a bit simple, because, okay, we can try different strategies here to win, and one of them can be just leaving the pawn that's on d5, using it as a factor that gives us time, just to leave it and go to the other side of the chessboard and capture the pawns there. And because black needs to now waste moves to capture our pawn, and meanwhile we already arrived to the h file, captured another pawn there. And what will black play here? What can black try? Stopping us is impossible, stopping our h pawn, because right in the next turn, even if there is nothing else, I can just push my pawn and promote. But of course I can also do it by capturing. And what else can black try? Maybe move to the queen side, try to capture our queen side pawn, but that's going to take too much time. We will have promoted way before black does any serious attempts. And here we are, we have promoted already, and this is going to be easy for white to win. Okay, so thank you for following this video.